Good evening, everyone. First, let me accept my apologies for not being there in person this evening due for unforeseen circumstances. I'm going to have to record this, and hopefully, people will be able to view it on the screen at the conference. But I was really looking forward to meeting everybody, and I'm really sorry that I can't be with you. What I want to talk to you about today is Black Country Poetics and Place, and just to offer a little bit more of a kind of creative, perhaps more innovative approach to the way that we can tackle some subjects, and in particular the engagement that we might see in subjects as well when we put a creative spin on things in order for students to start thinking about things on their own terms and through different lenses and different ways of expressing, and also the importance of locality, of region and place to people as well as a way into various subjects too. I want to start with a poem, and a poem from my collection that came out earlier in this year, the Chain Coral Chorus, and this is called Through Filth, and it's a poem that deals with the region, the sense of place in the region, and the layers of history and matter and cultural charge within the region too. So this poem is called Through Filth. Attend, descend with me mucker, down below grounds of Pagnell's Priory. Here hides the rhizome echo of Cluniac monks and their prayer, enkindled, inflamed, like our own smithy's scorched core to gem, sand to glass, dust to daggers, smelt by quicksilver fingers and nail-making kins full of ken for our caverns. These caverns, descend with me mucker, descend down below renner roots and lime, where the cut chain links Nidhogg, Yggdrasil to core shop, call centre. From chain coral helixing revelations to brackets, a battleship, ghost ship, colony. Empires of ivering and overing here, sending out canting wisps of caggy-headed scrappies older than God time. Attend, moist ore moves in slow spit-splitting Fermi, firm as fossil, cold as core. There ain't a Svedberg or scuttles in here, just patient sediments with a brood of hallousite, silica shale, tracks of tabulite ordering roots for proto-beans and proto-action. Down here, whim the stone and slick sand fertilities for Stela, glass mecca, almost teen lad we homer, with chisel, with lens to spy crinoid ruins, insects set in geonest. Attend, here rests the Dudley bug, Moloch. It's our slow burn municipal crest. Electra protects brave chests in protean soils and lets us swarm in stercore, in venita. So that poem is about Dudley. It's set in Dudley. It's inspired by the landscape of Dudley, and it goes down into the tunnels and the geological heritage of the region as well. And so much of my work is inspired by this, but this poem is a nice example of the things that we can do when we focus on the immediate locale and the things that are on the edge of our everyday and the things that are on our doorstep, to see what we can draw out of them. So the poem that you've just listened to is full of geological language and ways of observing. It's full of the earth sciences in terms of its vernacular and its way of thinking about life. It's full of history in terms of who's been where and the ruins and relics of the Black Country that have inspired and shaped our current culture. It's full of dialect and language, the unique Black Country dialects that are part of our culture, part of the way we express ourselves. And it's also full of poetic devices like alliteration and rhyme and assonance, meter, image, figurative language. And so all of these things are kind of coming together to form this kind of web, this dance of different things that allow us to see Dudley as more than just a down at heel place. It becomes a medieval market town with this deep time, slow time significance underneath it that's full of really important feats and really beautiful languages and all of these things. And I think we can use this model as a way into all sorts of different disciplines to teach and to research. So have a little think while I'm going through the slides now about the kinds of things that make up regional identity in the Black Country. See if you can draw up a list of people, places, characteristics, historical and cultural things, architecture, even moods and emotions that you think are attached to the place. Have a little think about what this region's famous for and how it manifests in local people, in local customs, in local languages as well. Because what you're doing there is you're building up the similar web that I have in that poem of place identity itself, the layers and the interplay of different signs and symbols that bring about a sense of place and a spirit of place, both in the individual and in the communal. Think about the myriad ways that we might use young people's immediate locales, direct memories, and idiosyncratic emotions and experiences to connect their learning to languages and places that they relate to. This is about engagement fundamentally, but in this poem and in unpacking the different layers of place that's right part of your own communities in the schools and the colleges that you work in, this could quite easily be an interesting lens to be applied to history lessons, to literature, to politics, to sociology, to art, law, geography certainly, but even film and TV and media. These are all subjects that can harness the local and can harness creative writing practice to reconfigure students' awareness of what's there in their immediate locales, in their own cultures, and make it relevant to them right now, in the present, in the current time space. Especially in our region, which is so often looked down upon, marginalised, seen as less good as other urban centres, that it perhaps has had its heyday. And young people in particular feel that squeeze. They feel disenfranchised in ways that we've never seen before. And so actually uncovering the beauty, the joy, the layers of curiosity that are better here than most places in the UK can be a really vibrant source for harnessing a sense of community, a sense of pride in the community, sense of action in the community, but also as a way into drawing out the passion in these subjects as well. Our landscape and our culture is full of history. It's full of politics. It's full of sociology. And if we can only open the door to students in that light, we can start to think about summoning future leaders and future communicators to preserve those traditions too. What I'm drawing on here is from the field of environmental psychology. And environmental psychology is an interdisciplinary field in the same way that my poem is interdisciplinary and the message to you today is interdisciplinary. There are a bunch of philosophers, psychologists, psychoanalysts, sociologists, historians, geographers, critical theorists and creative writers, all concerned with the ways in which place and people come together, that clash and connect, and the building of what Harold Prashansky, this chap on this slide, called place identity. And place identity is a subset of our own individual identities that are built up of cognitions, conceptions, observations of the physical world that the individual and the collective live. And these come about through memories, ideals, feelings, attitudes, values, preferences, meanings, and conceptions of behaviour and experience, which relate to the variety and the complexity of the physical settings, the immediate locale. And this consists of places, spaces, and their properties which have served instrumentally in the satisfaction of our biological, psychological, social, and cultural needs. So we settle in a place, we build up families in particular places, we build communities in particular places, and those places start to harbour memories. They start to produce distinct foods, distinct languages, distinct passions and habits, and all of these things. They have their histories, they have their resonances, they have their own landscapes, they have their own stratigraphic layers and important, significant historical sites and architectural layout, and all of these things build a particular place. And so again, place identity itself, or a genius loci or spirit of place, is built from this dance and web of that which is verifiable and objective truths, and that which is more ephemeral and difficult to track. So it's a combination of the logical and the rational and the verifiable with the imaginative, with the mythical, with the poetic frames of mind. And so if we relate to our environments in this way, it stands to reason that we can relate to other subjects in this way as well, and that offering those subjects through a very regional lens is of course going to be dramatically improve the way in which people engage with those, because we are so harnessed and anchored to what's on our doorstep. I've got a couple of diagrams here to show a little bit more how that kind of works out. So if you think about place, or a sense of place in the center, and that those are a combination of different things, and it's that which brings about this spirit of place. To start off with, you've got a kind of physical setting or a form, and that might be a field. And then to the left, you've got an action or an activity or a movement or a thing within that field. So say the field is particularly good for cricket or football or mining. It calls people with similar wants, desires, and needs to that field, and they start producing mines, cricket, football, whatever it might be. And that combination of the field itself, the physical setting, and the form, the shape of the grounds themselves, with the activity that is ripe for that, produces meaning or imagery or symbolic charge. And by this, I mean that the people that are engaging in the same activities in the same lands start to produce ways of being, experiences, memories, images, types of language that are all associated with the combination of action in the physical. So it's local and it's movement that produces this spirit of place. We can't escape it. This is a way that we hang our identities on. And this web, this dance interplay of different signs and symbols of a location across time, starts to imbibe itself onto our sense of self as well, which is why we get local pride. And in particular in the Black Country, this local pride is something that is associated with our industrial past and is strangely connected with the off-kilter landscape of the place and its off-kilter dialects. But more than this too, it's one that is associated with grief, with loss and pride, and a combination of those things, which I think we can kind of build on in the subjects that you and I teach. So the Black Country is a strange mix of green space and green of grey space, of urban and rural. It's a weird mix of large housing estates and overlapping conurbations. It's a weird mix of ruined factories and medieval castles, of regeneration and gentrification, of canals, railways, housing estates, industrial estates, nature reserves, all of these things. And so we've got this peculiar, liminal, marginal, overlooked landscape that's ripe, that's full of the things that we want to encourage students to look at. We're not quite north and we're not quite south. We're not quite the same as Brummies. Quite a lot of our identity is harnessed to its industrial past, but so much of this has been lost, ruined, renovated, built over. And so we've got a direct access to layers and layers of this place identity, in its history, in its sociology, in its politics, in its language uses, in the pop culture that it produces, in the literature that it produces. All of these things can be tied down to place, and we now know that place is fundamental to our well-being and to our sense of self. And so this can harness particular passions in students and help them understand things on their own terms as well. Geology, as they say, is destiny. The region was forged by its industrial past and as an engineering powerhouse. And these steelworks, forges, nailworks, these weren't just places that people went to work. These were places where that built up large housing estates around them, that populated churches and synagogues and mosques, that populated working men's clubs and social clubs and football pitches and leisure clubs. So what you have here is a network, a web, a dance, where the same people that work together play together, pray together, and grow up together, share the same experiences and languages. But none of this would have been possible had it not been for the geology of the region. It wouldn't have happened had it not been for the coal seam and for the limestone that enabled these industrial and engineering feats. So place identity in this way is underpinned by the mineral-rich resources that are within the Black Country itself, and which is why it's now been designated a UNESCO Global Black Country Geopark. And that I'm very, very passionate about. And so you've got this kind of social layer, if we want to think about it as stratigraphic layers or cultural layers. You've got this domestic layer, you've got a political layer, you've certainly got a historic layer and a linguistic layer that can all be applied either simultaneously or idiosyncratically per subject. And underpinned is this attention to the ecological, to deep time, and to geology. So we're also forging in our students a sense of awareness of ecological debates and further. What I'm talking about here is a practice that I move into, which is geopoetics. And geopoetics is a cross-discipline field of philosophy, ways of being, and certainly ways of expressing the earth and expressing the locality. It's about a topological presence, and by that I mean an awareness of our immediate locales in conjunction with a deep time or cosmic awareness. It concerns itself with an understanding of the minutiae of our locale and the layers of the locale, historic layers, familial and personal layers, and indeed the rocks and soils themselves. And in doing this, it calls for a new way of seeing and a new way of recording place through embodied understanding. And so we get this collation, this weaving together of different ways of seeing and different vernaculars or expressions. And the poet, the Canadian poet Don McKay, called this a crossing point between the rational and the poetic, between logic and mysticism. And in doing that, we're actually creating new sparks or new conjugations of expression and ways of seeing. And again, I think this can be harnessed across disciplines in many, many different subject areas to make people and to help students connect to the subject and to connect with their locales. I thank you for your time, and again, my apologies. Thank you.